From the, that's a computer. Thank you. Although I love that music. Doesn't it make you just feel Christmassy? Yes. It's been lovely just being here with this wonderful church. They're so friendly, and I've loved leading worship. We have a wonderful choir here, amazing singers. So I got to come and conduct them. Foothills has been a blessing in my life for sure. And I was delighted when Kathleen asked me to come and sing with you and maybe share a little bit with you. So we're going to focus in on joy. And I'm sure you know some of these songs, please sing them along with me if you want to. Maybe it'll snow this year, and we can really sing this song. Sleigh bells ring, are you listening? In the lane, snow is glistening. We'll frolic and play the Eskimo way, walking in a winter wonderland. Gone away is the bluebird, here to stay is the new bird. He'll sing a love song as we go along, walking in a winter wonderland. In the meadow we can build a snowman and pretend that he is Parson Brown. He'll say, are you married? We'll say, no, man, but you can do the job when you're in town. Later on we'll conspire as we dream by the fire. We'll frolic and play the Eskimo way, walking in a winter wonderland. So we can picture ourselves, right? You get your big, big coat on. You get your big scarf on. It takes you like 30 minutes to get ready to go outside, right? And then if you add kids on that, it takes you a whole hour to get ready, right? I can testify that is true. Then they stay out for 5 minutes, they come back in, and then they're all a mess, right? But we still love it, right? In the meadow we can build a snowman and pretend that he's a circus clown. We'll have lots of fun with Mr. Snowman until the other kitties knock him down. When it snows, ain't it thrilling? When your nose gets a chillin', we'll frolic and play the Eskimo way, walking in a winter wonderland. Walking in a winter wonderland. Walking in a winter wonderland. You know, I used to live in New Hampshire from when I was 3 till I was 10, and in New Hampshire, it snows like crazy. So I have lots of memories of snow. When I sing that song, it reminds me of that. I remember waking up real early in the morning, and it was before our dog Jenny. She was like an Irish setter, red color, and she would go out to go to the bathroom in the front, and she would ruin all the perfectly smooth snow, and I wanted to see it before she was let out. So I tried to do that. But memories of the snowblower, you know, and it would already be like 2 feet, you know, and then the snowblower would heap it on the side of the driveway, and then it was super fun because you could like bury yourself inside of it. It was really fun. I had lots of memories of that. I'm going to sing this song for you. It's called Not That Far from Bethlehem. You know, what happened in Bethlehem so long ago, it comes back close to our hearts this time of year, and it's a time when God can move in mighty ways in us because we just start thinking about him more often, and we start saying, wasn't that amazing? And isn't our God so loving? And, you know, maybe if you're like me, sometimes that even brings up questions you have about God. And I just want to tell you that God is not afraid of our questions, and he wants us to come to him, and he wants us to ask him these questions and then listen and be taught. So my prayer for you guys, this Christmas season is that The Christmas draws you closer to him because that's where our hearts are truly joyful. Yes. Underneath the stars, just a simple man and wife somewhere in the dark. His words cut the silent night. Take my hand, for the child that you carry is God's own. And though it seems the road is long, we're not that far from Bethlehem, where all our hopes and joy begin. For in our arms we'll cherish him. We're not that far from Bethlehem. Let us celebrate as the Christmases go by. Learn to live our days with our hearts near to the child, ever drawn, ever close to the only love that lasts. And though 2,000 years have passed, we're not that far from Bethlehem, where all our hopes and joy began. For when our hearts still cherish him, we're not that far. We're not that far from Bethlehem, where all our hopes and joy began. For when our hearts still cherish him, we're not that far. We're not that far from Bethlehem. Amen. I was just mentioning about how God is not scared of our questions, and I wanted just to tell you just a brief part about my testimony about something like that. When I graduated college a long time ago, I will not tell you when, I knew that God had called me into the music ministry, but I didn't know how he was going to do that. I tried majoring in music composition, and it was just way too classical and not heartfelt. I had to get out of that. And I did vocal performance at Samford, and it was great, but it was very classical, which is fun. We could do that next if you want. No, never mind. But right before I graduated, I was at home, and I was just having a weekend at home, and I was doing the dishes. And I just started singing this song, and it just started clicking, and I started going, it was from the dishes right to the piano, and I started writing things down, and I ended up with this whole song, and it was fun. And my mom said, you need to submit that to the Babby Mason songwriting competition, because I like to go to this conference for Christian artists. It was fun, very encouraging. So I ended up winning first place, and it was like 1 month out after graduation, and God catapulted me into into ministry that way. And it was such a big encouragement. So then I went off to YWAM, Youth with a Mission. I went to Montana to do a discipleship training school. It's very in-depth discipleship. And then we went to India for 2 months for missions. That was crazy because we were in India during Christmas. I could tell you that story, trying to find a Christmas tree in India, asking people to cut down trees in their yard, basically. But while I was at this YWAM discipleship training school, someone called Babby Mason's office and said, "We need a song about a princess, and will you please write it for us?" She said, "No, that song's already been written. It won our competition this year." So she let my parents know, and they said, somebody is interested in your song. So I came home from that wonderful ministry experience, jumped into leading worship for this woman who did a mother-daughter conference, traveling around. The first one was in Florida, and it was all about, it's called Kingdom Princess, and my song was called Princess in Disguise. God has plans for us, and they're very specific. But little me, I'm not really that experienced. I've written just a couple songs. I won this competition, and I have to go lead worship for this, travel by plane there, and I'm kind of freaking out. And I made a CD that summer. What are you going to do? You're going to write a whole bunch more songs and make a CD. So it comes down to the week before the conference, the first conference is going to start. Just Amber Alert. We all get on the same time. Well, God, just be with that family if there's an Amber Alert for a child, Lord. We just lift them up, Lord Jesus. We pray, bring protection on them. In Jesus' name. So I was really freaking out because I thought, what if I forget if my songs are verse, chorus, chorus, or bridge, chorus. And I'm just really wondering, how can I get all this work done in a week? And I heard the Lord say, please come before me. Please come and meet with me. And I said, God, I'm too busy. I have to learn all this stuff. And I have to go on a plane somewhere and lead worship. And he just kept at me. Finally, it was so distracting, I just said, yes, Lord, okay. So I brought my Bible with me, and I went down to the basement closet, all by myself. He brought me immediately to Joshua 1:9. And he said, this verse says, if you're not familiar, it says, "Be strong and courageous, for I will use you to show my people their inheritance." And this is where I was going to go, talk about people being a daughter of God, and they needed to know what their inheritance was. I'm like, thank you, Lord. I know that's for me. That's awesome. So went to teach that night on the way home. On the radio, guess what? There's a sermon on the radio, and it's on Joshua 1. And I'm like, well, thank you, Lord. I mean, nothing in my heart even moved forward to know a certainty that this was the Lord. I knew right away. But God confirmed, because I've shared this testimony so many times. I think it's really been encouragement to others. So went through the week, packed up all my stuff. I had my freshly made CDs. I had my outfit, whatever you need to do. Got there, still nervous. It was in a gym. What is written up on the wall of this gym? Be strong and courageous, Joshua 1:9. So God, my parents were always encouragers. I think God just knew I needed encouragement. But my friend who had breast cancer, my best friend from college, now my kids call her Auntie Carmen because we just love her. Let's like family. She got breast cancer. And you know what? The Lord did the same thing to her. He brought up to her, be strong and courageous. And she'd go here. And then something's reminding her. And she sees this. And if I look back in the scripture, this is what happened to Joshua. God repeated it and repeated it until he understood fully. So I just want to encourage you tonight. We're going to have a great speaker. I'm going to do one more song. I hope I didn't talk too long. Sorry. Just to be confident in what God has called you to do, whether it's art, whatever it is, cooking like this amazing feast we've had. Be strong and courageous and walk forward in what God has for you. Okay? All right. I gotta remember words. words too. Hark how the bells, sweet silver bells, all seem to say, throw cares away, Christmas is here, bringing good cheer to young and old, meek and the bold. Oh, how they pound, raising the sound, o'er hill and dale, telling their tale, gaily they ring, while people sing songs of good cheer, Christmas is here. Oh, how they pound, raising the sound, o'er hill and dale, telling their tale, gaily they ring, while people sing songs of good cheer, Christmas is here. Merry, 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 merry Christmas, merry, 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 merry Christmas, merry, merry. Is here, bringing good cheer to young and old, meek and the bold. Oh, how they pound, raising the sound, o'er hill and dale, telling their tale, gaily they ring, while people sing songs of good cheer, Christmas is here. Oh, how they pound, raising the sound, o'er hill and dale, telling their tale, sing songs of good cheer, Christmas is here. Oh, merry, 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 merry Christmas, merry, 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 merry Christmas, merry, 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 merry. Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong, ding dong, ding dong, ding dong, ding. Sing with me. What child is this who lay to rest on Mary's lap is sleeping? Shepherds greet with anthems sweet, while shepherds watch are keeping. This is Christ the King, whom shepherds guard and angels sing. Haste, haste to bring him, Lord, the babe, the Son of Mary. This is Christ the King, whom shepherds guard and angels sing. Haste, haste to bring him, Lord, the babe, the Son, the babe, the Son of Mary, the Son of Mary. Thank you. Letting me share.
Katie, thank you so much. You're always a blessing to us. We really appreciate you. Ladies, there's a gift on the table in front of your place setting that you had, but you don't have it anymore. So those are yours to take home.
Excuse me. I'm from the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta, and there is a virus that's going on all over the state, and they're sending me that anytime more than 20 people are gathered together, they have asked me to come and tell y'all about it because you can recognize the symptoms kind of early on, and here it is, the holidays, and you do not want to spread it to whole your family. It is highly, highly contagious. And so I'm here to give checkups. If anybody wants to see, if you hadn't been feeling real good lately, if you want to volunteer for the first checkup, I can. Nobody wants to volunteer. Oh, do you know what I have discovered? That the person who volunteers somebody else is the one who needs it the most. That a sure sign that you might have it is that you think everybody else has got it. So if you'll stand up, I will check you, and you'll be so excited to find out. Though, stand up, sugar. All right. The good news is I'm a mental health nurse. And so my checkup is from the neck up. And you know how you go to the doctor and you want him to check your heart. And what he uses is, what does he put on your heart? A stethoscope. Well, let me tell you, in the mental health business, we don't check out, the way we check out your heart. I've got a medical journal that I've learned about mental health. And in the medical journal, it says that if you want to know what's going on in your heart, listen to what's coming out of your mouth. And so when I listen to people talk, I know if they got it or not. And then I'll say, you know what? Instead of talking all that negative stuff, you ought to be talking what you've learned in the medical journal. And a stethoscope will work every time. And if you'll get a good friend and you'll say, you know what? Instead of talking about this, we ought to be talking about something else. And so I'm going to tell you, the thing about this virus is it comes in stages. You know how when you get a virus and you're not feeling real good, but you make sure you go on anyway, right? And so you go on and then you give it to somebody else. And then after everybody else has got it, you wondering what's wrong with everybody else. And you gave it to them. And you didn't even get it. So I'm going to tell you right away what the first symptom is so that you can get it in check. And I tell you, I can just listen to you talking around the table. In fact, ladies, it really starts in the kitchen. I can listen to you talking in the kitchen because what you're talking in the kitchen is usually what you're talking around the table. And so the first symptom is when you start whining about everything that's going on. Now, I don't know if y'all know what whining is. Do you know what it is? You do. Do you know what in the medical journal it calls it by a different name? In the medical journal it calls it murmuring. Yeah, but see, I'm from South Georgia, we call it whining. And the beautiful thing about it, you would know, you're from South Georgia. Did they call it whining down there? They absolutely do. So it's the same thing. And so there's a big difference, though, in whining and complaining. Do y'all know the difference? Oh, I'm so glad I'm here then. Y'all need to know that. A complaint is when you see something that's not quite right and you want to do something about it. And though you go to somebody who can help you do something about it. But if you just want to tell somebody and you don't intend to do anything about it, you just want to tell somebody, that's whining, whining, whining. And so I know that none of you whine. But I bet you know some people who do. How many of you in here know 3 people who whine a lot? All right. How many of you in here know probably more than 5 people who whine? That's all they do is whine. Do you know more than 5? Well, I have some really bad news for you. The more you know, the more likely you are one. Y'all whiners hang together. Have you ever noticed it? They always hanging together. And so here's the thing. If you would like to become whine-free, would y'all like to have a whine-free Christmas? Yes. Well, I want to tell you, my oldest daughter is 53 years old. When she was 14 and she was in middle school, I had to give a devotional for the PTA. Now, that ought to tell you how long ago that was, right? They don't even think they have PTAs anymore, much less a devotional. And so I said, God, would you just give me something really fresh for Christmas? And he took me to Philippians 2:14. And it says, do all things without murmuring and arguing, and you'll shine like a light in a dark world. And that was my introduction to what he said about whining. And so I decided that I would become a whine-free person. And I put in my house, true story, every room in my house had a thou shalt not whine sign. And I taught my children what the difference in whining and complaining was. If you're coming to me and I can help you do something about it, then that's a complaint. But if you're coming to me and I can help you, then give me some suggestion of what I could do to help you. And everything else is whining. And so here's the thing. If you would like, let's suppose you're not a whiny person, but you know a lot of people who are. Well, we say in South Georgia that whiners are like fire ants. You can't get rid of them. You just have to move them from one place to the other. Wouldn't you like, do you know that if y'all had Foothills Community Church, a whine-free church, do you know you'd have to build another sanctuary? People would love to come and worship with people who didn't whine, wouldn't they? And after all, this book is full of being thankful in all circumstances. And if it says it and we don't do it, you know what that means it is? It's not a germ. Makes it a sin. So, anyway, if you would like to, if you're right and you're rude, you're still wrong. So if you decided to become a whine-free person and you just want the whiner to kind of move on away from you, let me tell you a surefire way that'll work. Are y'all excited? Okay, this is how you do it. First of all, when you're whine-free, you just look better. You do. People who are whine-free just smile, and they're not even afraid of catching your germ. And so you look at them and you smile and you call them by name. And you would say, Eleanor's telling me something. And I'm trying to decide if she's whining or complaining. That's all I'm trying to decide. And Eleanor will tell me, and I say, well, now, Eleanor, what can I do to help you solve this? Now, was that a good question? Was that, what can I do to help you solve this? And Eleanor says, well, I don't know if we can do anything about it. I've been telling them around here they hadn't done anything. I said, I tell you what, Eleanor, when you figure out what I can do to help you, come on back. And so Eleanor leaves. She's a little confused because I have whined with her before, and she just thinks I'm on something, So she comes back the second time, and then this time, Eleanor still hadn't figured out what I could help her do. And so that is when I give her, I'll say, well, I'll tell you what, Eleanor, you take some vanilla wafers, and you eat these until you figure out what I can do to help you. Y'all, all these these are cookies just to hush you up. Vanilla wafers are not treats, are they? Oreos are treats. What do? You hand them to those little ones to get them to go on and hush up. That's exactly what they are. Well, they're just they help whiners too. So you just give them to her, and the thing about it is Eleanor would do anything before she'd come back to me anymore. She might go to somebody else, but she ain't coming back to me unless she's ready to do something about it. And you know what, the thing I've also discovered about whining is that it affects your eyesight. The more you whine about what you don't have, the more blind you are to what you do have. And you see, you just can't stop whining, but you can replace it. And what you replace it with, and here's what I found is in my medical journal, it just has not medication, but meditations. And so what I think on is usually what comes out of my mouth. And so when I just meditate on being grateful in all things, and gratitude is the only thing that will drive out whining, because it's obedience, number one. And so would you like to make a deliberate decision? Thank you. That's a lot better. It was bothering me too. I know it was bothering y'all. I thought she was going to get me to sing. No, the most musical part of this body is my nose. I can pick it or blow it. Anyway, make a deliberate decision to become an exceptionally grateful person. What better time than the Christmas season to make that decision to become an exceptionally grateful person? And I get excited and hear about stories because I get excited about what happens around tables, what happens around kitchens, and what happens around tables. And one of my favorite stories in here about, the story, but it was about Martha, who invited Jesus into her home. It was her idea. And then she got busy, and Mary wasn't helping her. And she went to Jesus and said, now, why didn't she go to Mary? Wouldn't that have made more sense? Why don't she just, you know how you can sit there and try to get their attention and tell them to come on in here without disturbing everything? You've done that. You give them the eye. You know how you give it to your children in church when they're supposed to sit and you give them the eye. And then you don't have to say a word. Well, she didn't do that to Mary. She just went to Jesus and said, do you not care that she's helping me serve all by myself? That's what she said. And he called her by name twice. He loves to call you by name. See, Mary didn't have a middle name. If she'd have had a middle name, he'd have called her by her first and middle name. You know, like you do your children when you're serious. He just said, Martha, Martha, you are so worried about so many things. And Mary has chosen her part. And that's just to sit in relationship with me. But I want you to think about this, ladies. He didn't tell her to quit serving. There was nothing wrong with her serving. That's what she chose to do. But she missed the joy in it. She missed the joy in it. How often have we missed the joy in what we volunteered to do? Have you ever been so glad that your family was coming home and you get in there or your company's coming over and it was a great idea until the day before? It was. And then your spouse is sitting in there and you're wondering why he doesn't help you. Yes. Right. Don't miss the joy in what you're doing. In fact, if you want to keep joy in your kitchen, I will tell you the perfect way that you can always, always have joy in your kitchen. Just put some of this on your kitchen counter. You will have joy with you all the time. It might not cut grease, but it'll make you smile. Always keep it with you. And I want to know if any of you think, have any of y'all in here ever flashed anybody? You have? She has? Oh my goodness, that's so exciting! I am so proud of you. I'm not going to ask you to tell us about it, but she's real. I'm telling you, that is great. I love truthful people. And I would say, how many of you have ever thought about it? But I'm going to give you a present. Okay. The best way to wipe out whining when you can't, tell anybody what it is you just flash them. And I'm going to give you your official wipe out whining flash, which means when you're scurrying about at the kitchen or you're at the table and you sit down and this Christmas you say, I tell you what, we're going to have a whine-free conversation today. And then you say, if I hear any whining in my house during the holidays, you're just going to get flashed. And you just flash them. And that means that whatever it is we're whining about, we are absolutely missing our joy. So don't miss the joy. And you flash them all during Christmas. I tell you, you can teach children this at a very young age. Because my children grew up with that, it was just the 11th commandment, thou shalt not whine. And my daughter called me one day. She had 2 toddlers, and she said, Mama, guess what I just heard Catherine say? Catherine was 5 at the time. She told her little sister, who was 3, if you quit whining, I'll play with you. And she said, they understand it when you explain it to them and you just say, we just don't do it in this house because we'd rather have the joy that comes with gratitude. And the beautiful part, ladies, is gratitude will always precede joy. Gratitude will always precede joy. So the more infectious we are with gratitude, because we're looking at what we do have and we're being grateful for it, and all of a sudden the joy just wells up in us, and then it begins to spill out on everybody else. And here there was a prescription for that in here too, because Jesus said, I'm giving you my joy. It ain't even your joy. I'm giving you my joy, and your joy is going to do what? Be full. And when joy gets full, it overflows. Now I'll tell you a true story. 3 years ago I had surgery. And I'm a cyclist, and I couldn't cycle. And I was whining. Tell you the truth, I was whining about it. And so all I could do was walk. Was I grateful I could walk? No, I was just whining because I couldn't cycle. But I went out to walk. And I was just walking. You know how whiners walk when they feel, because you feel sorry for yourself, right? And I was just walking around like this. And if somebody I hadn't seen in a long time rode by, rolled down their window. Now, I'm telling my age, you don't roll down a window anymore. They put their window down. Put the arm out and yelled as loud as they could, "Hey, Alice, good to see you." And do you know, my shoulders went back. I started walking with a spring in my step. I walked home as fast as I could. I ran in the house and I said to my husband, "I just had a joy drop." And he said, "You had what?" I said, "Somebody just dropped joy into me." And we talked about it, and he's smiling. He's not like me. But but he came in a couple of days later and he said, "I had a joy drop today." And it caught on with us. And now our conversations every single day, "Did you get a joy drop today?" And he'll walk in and tell me he had a joy drop. Well, it got so exciting for us. And somebody said to me, "Well, don't you think it's more important that you drop joy?" I said, "Oh, let me tell you how contagious it is. When you notice the joy dropped into you, you can't wait to go drop it into anybody else." This is the way. It's a multiplying book. It's about multiplying. And so, y'all, I got so excited that I didn't want to ever forget it. That was 3 years ago. I started me a joy drop book. And what I do is, because I get joy at the strangest times, a clerk will be exceptionally nice to me and pleasant, and I'll say, "You must love your job," and they'll say, "I do love it." I get in my car and I write it down. I say, "Joy drop." Just watching somebody. Today, I was driving through Monroe, Georgia, and there was an older couple coming out of a store. They were shopping, and they were holding hands. I thought, that's just a joy drop to me. That's just a joy. And you begin to see the little things that bring you joy. And I have to write them down, because when I'm feeling like I don't have much joy, oh my goodness, there's joy everywhere. Well, last year, I even got so excited about joy drops that I bought me some joy drops. Look at these little things. Aren't they precious? You just get them at Hobby Lobby. And they're little crystals, and I carry them around in my little bag. And now when somebody drops joy into me, if I'm face to face with them, I'm going to say, "You just gave me a joy drop." And I hand them the little drop, because you know what happens? They'll put it in their pocket, and they'll feel it. And they'll go home and they'll tell somebody, "I dropped joy today." And you know what happens? It begins to catch on. Wouldn't you love to have an epidemic? Wouldn't you like for it to start in Foothills Church? There's an epidemic of joy dropping going on all over that church. They're dropping joy everywhere they go. Wouldn't that be awesome? Start paying attention, because, y'all, God will open your eyes to see the joy around you. You see what you're looking for. And when you see it, you become contagious with it yourself. Outrageous, contagious joy. And so I'd get... And I'm going to tell you one of my favorite stories in here, because excuses will stop our joy. And Zacchaeus is one of my favorite little characters, you know, and he was little, and this is not even a parable. This is a true story, but he wanted to see Jesus. And so nobody liked him. You know why they didn't like him? Because he was rich, and he was a tax collector. So they wouldn't move out of the way for him, and he was short, so he had a real good excuse to go home. Nobody likes me. I hate the way people treat me. And I'm short. That's my mom and daddy's fault. And I really want to see him. I really do want to see him. I had every reason, excuse in the world to leave, but he didn't. He stood there and he thought. Then he realized he could climb a tree. And he ran on ahead and he climbed up that tree. And all he wanted to do was see him. Isn't that funny? All he wanted to do was see him. And Jesus walked by. Now, there were crowds of people following Jesus. And I'm sure that a lot of them had needs. But he looked up in that tree, because he knows what's going on in your heart. And he looked up in that tree, and he called him by name too. He loves to call your name. And he said, "Zacchaeus." Now, don't you know Zacchaeus almost fell out of that tree? I would have. "Zacchaeus, come on down." Now, you want to talk about a voice that was excited. Jesus was an exciting person, y'all. He said, "Zacchaeus, come on down. I want to go to you." He invited himself. But you know what it says? And I was just rereading it. It says he welcomed him into his home. Welcomed him. And so it does not tell us any sermon that Jesus preached to him. He just sat at his table and had a meal with him. And in the conversation, after the conversation with the meal, Zacchaeus simply said, you know, I'm going to give half of everything I own away. And if I've taken anything from anybody wrongly, I'll give it back 4 times. That was a repentant, changed heart. Repentant, changed heart, because in the very next words after that story, Jesus said, I just came to seek and to save those that are lost. And see, he knew that Zacchaeus was lost, but he knew Zacchaeus was seeking him. And so he invited him into his house. And we can find excuses for everything, can't we? We can say, well, I was looking for God and I read my Bible, but I just didn't get anything out of it. I went to church, but nothing happened. Just keep on going. Just keep on going. And so, I had 4 years ago, I'd gained over 20 pounds in 1 year. And so I go to the doctor, and he's talking to me, and he said, well, tell me what you're eating. Tell me, have you changed your eating habits? What has happened? And I said, well, I just pick up a lot, go through the drive. You don't know what I'm talking about. You can just drive through, and they'll bring it to the... You ain't got to do anything anymore. And I said, my grandchildren come, and I say it's time to eat, and they get in the car. We've just ruined ourselves. And so he gave me one of those little food charts, and he says one of those, they're all colors, you got to have red and green, all this kind of stuff. He said, you get to that grocery store and you buy yourself some real food and get yourself back in health. Well, I didn't have any excuse. So I said, I'm going. So I went to the store, and I want you to know that these have every color. Every single color on that chart in the food group, it had it. Now, it takes a while, because he gave me that little chart, and I had to put so many greens. I had to have more greens than reds. But it has been the sweetest diet I have ever been on. If anybody would like to go, I'll start you out on it. Anybody want the first day's food? You know how when you have to order it online and how much it is? Anybody want to start it? Right over here. All right. You're going to love the diet. Oh, and the good thing about it, you'd think you'd get bored eating M&Ms all the time. Oh, no. They got so many kinds of M&Ms now. When I'm needing a little crunch, I get the peanut ones, and I like those a lot. I take these to the ball game. Would you like those? Yes, they do have protein in them. And then, now I have these, I take these with me in my car all the time. And they're the mint M&Ms, because I always like to keep a fresh breath when I meet people. And so would anybody, your breath needs freshening? All right, okay. And then, now, when my grandchildren come, I make sure, so their mama won't get upset with me, they get these for breakfast. They're the crispy, they had the little Rice Krispie cereal in there. And I tell them, just tell your mama you had Rice Krispies for breakfast. So does anybody have children they want to feed tomorrow, Saturday? They want to feed? Here, you can take yours, and they can have some good Rice Krispie M&Ms tomorrow. Now, for lunch, I make my grandchildren eat the peanut butter ones, because instead of peanut butter jelly sandwiches, we just eat peanuts. Here, you can have those. And then I have, now these I don't like. So I keep them in case somebody asks me to share. I give them these because I don't like them. They're the hazelnut spread. Does anybody here like hazelnut? Oh, right over here. Well, I'm so glad you can have the whole package all by yourself. And then we have, y'all, these are kind of new, but you need to brush your teeth pretty soon afterward. They're kind of chewy. These are the caramel M&Ms. They're real good with coffee. Yeah, I like those too. And then I have the, these are my 5 o'clock M&Ms. They're pretzels M&Ms. They with a Diet Coke, they're real good. Does anybody want the pretzel? Okay, all right, over here. Since I've been on the M&M diet, it's like every day's Friday and every hour's happy, so it doesn't matter. Now, these are new, and they are awesome for, I just kind of like them I like them right after lunch. They're the toffee peanut, English toffee peanut. They're brand new. Right over here, you would like those. Look how excited she gets. Jesus and M&Ms will bring a lot of joy. Now, these I only eat on Sunday. These are my Sunday M&Ms, and they are white chocolate M&Ms. Oh, you would like those. So that is my M&M story. There's no excuse for you not to eat all the colors in the food group if you want them. Well, let me tell you, one of the things that I also discovered about people when we aren't grateful, as we whine, we go to the stage of being critical of other people. Because people that are grateful want to build up other people, and people that are whining tend to tear other people down. And so I always keep with me all the time Lysol. So if anybody is ever talking about somebody else that's not present, I just start spraying. And I'll say, I don't want to catch your germ about somebody else. Y'all, we really do have to say we're not going to do that. And so I keep that for that. And then when I'm looking at excuses and I don't want to do something, I know that if I keep this around my kitchen, either WD-40 or duct tape, because if it's something I need to be doing and I'm not doing it, I just need to spray and get moving. There's no excuse. If I'm doing something and it's not working, I just need to duct tape it, put it in the... Quit doing that. It's that simple. We're the ones that make it so hard. Now, I want to go to the very third story, because here is the thing. If we become grateful and we build other people up and our joy begins to overflow, then we do not get to the final stage. And that is that stage of being living in bitterness. Living in bitterness and blame. And I don't know if you remember the man who was paralyzed for 38 years. And he was by the pool, and Jesus just walked up to him and said, do you want to be whole? That's all he asked him, do you want to be whole? And I thought, what a strange question, but you know, sometimes we do not want to walk in the Spirit. See, we can be spiritually paralyzed, which is a worse paralysis than physical paralysis. And when you really answer the question, when he asks you, do you really want to be free to walk in the Spirit? Then we have to face the question, do I want to give up my bitterness? Do I want to give up the bitterness and the blame and take responsibility and confess and repent of my own bitterness, so then I can turn around and forgive the one I'm bitter against? And when we can do that, we are living in real joy, not pretend joy. Because you know, when the Father, one of the most beautiful parables of all is the parable of the prodigal son. And when he came home and the father was so excited to see him, who was not excited to see him? The older brother, because he was bitter. And when he said, I can't believe you're having this big celebration for him. And after all these years, I've done nothing wrong. I've been here working the whole time. But the father, and he said, why haven't you ever killed the fatted calf for me? And he said, every day you could have come to my table. Every day you were invited to sit at the table. And isn't that what he says in Revelation when Jesus said about the church in Laodicea? You know, I want to come sit down and eat a meal with you. But he doesn't come unless we open the door and invite him in. I want to tell you that it was a true story that I did gain the weight, and it was a true story that I did lose it. And I lost it by eating only natural food, real food, and not processed food. And it wasn't M&M, so I fibbed to you on that one. But I did go to real food, and what I learned is I ate more apples, and I've eaten more apples than anybody imaginable. But with this apple, the frustrating part is there are 700 varieties in the United States alone, and they all cost a different price. You got to get, if you want to try one out, you got to put one in one bag and one in another. Isn't that frustrating? Isn't that frustrating? Anyway, instead of being grateful, I have that many choices. But anyway, so I've tried them all, and I'm going to test your apple IQ. What kind of apple is this, and how much did it cost? I bought it. Well, I'll tell you. You just guess what it is.
Fuji.
Okay. It is a Fuji! Who said that? You're an apple good. You're a good apple. Well, I bought it at Publix Saturday. How much do you think I paid for it? $1.39. They were on sale for $1.29, and this one's about 89 cents. So, you know, they were a little bit on sale. They had a whole bunch of them. Okay, now what about this one? Yeah. What about that one? Gala? No. Macintosh? That was a good guess. No. No. Well, let me tell you what it cost. Then maybe that'll help you. This apple was $5.89. Yeah. This one was Publix. This one was Hobby Lobby. It ain't real, but it looks good, doesn't it? Ladies, I want you to think about this. Do we spend more money on just looking good than on being real? Because you see, this apple, once I bought it, it served no purpose except to look good and maybe impress you, but it serves no other purpose. But this one, it costs a whole lot less than you think, yeah, but when you eat it, it's gone. You know, think of all you can do with it. You can cut it up, you can share it, you can make some fried apple pies, you can make some applesauce, you can make an apple salad. There's so much you can do with this thing, but the one thing you can do with it, you will never run out. If you take the seeds and plant them, you'll have apples forever. But this one, it only serves me, nobody else. And this is what I want you to think about when you read this book. That so many times, it clearly says don't be conformed to the world. But sometimes, because it says be transformed by the renewing of your mind, and that's why I say the stethoscope is, instead of thinking the way the world thinks, think the way the Word teaches. But sometimes, too, even as Christians, we can conform to the image of a Christian, and we can go through the motions. And we can say the right things to the right people at the right time. But in us, deep inside of us, there's just something that's not right. And even though it's not a subject that people like to talk about, because they think that it's just it's heavy, and it is. But if we want that everything that Jesus came to give us is in himself, it's in him himself. And we get him himself as we just repent of, we'll never be able to do it on our own. Can't do it on my own. And so if this Christmas we could just say, God, thank you for sending your Son who became like us, so that we could be in a relationship with you as he is. And he did it all. All we have to do is say, I can't do it. But I'm giving you my life like you gave me your life so that I can be in the presence of God. And when we're in the presence of God, I've just decided to live in his presence by his power and for his glory. And that's the joy of Christmas. And it's not anything that we ever earn. It's not something we work up. See, working it up is just making yourself a beautiful apple. But when I'm real, I cry sometimes, and that's okay. I get angry, and that's okay. But what I do is I know my relationship with him is real. Because it's no longer in circumstances, it's in relationship. And that was the most wonderful gift he has ever given me, is to say, Ellen, you're looking for it in the circumstances, but you're going to find it in me. Because he said clearly, in this world, you're going to go through stuff. You're going to go through stuff. But you need to cheer up, because I'm with you in everything you go through. So I'm 73, and I spent about 70 years trying to get praying to God, studying the Bible, trying to fix the circumstances around me. Until I just said, His word got through to me. It's me, not you. And I'm telling you what, since that day, nothing has changed on the outside for me, but everything's changed on the inside. And it makes, every time I look at that little manger, I think, oh, I'm so glad you came. I'm so glad you came. One of the things, the word joy, I love it, and so much that comes with it. Rejoice is a part of joy. And if you want obedience 101, and we need to go back to the basics, like reading, writing, and arithmetic. Well, obedience 101 is 1 Thessalonians 5, 16, 17, and 18. Rejoice always. And what you're rejoicing in is your relationship. Pray continually and give thanks in all things. If we get those three, we are well on the way to living deeply in that relationship. So when Jesus went to sit the 70 out and he gave them power to cast out demons, to heal, and they were so excited, they came back to him and said, you're not going to believe what all we've been doing. And you know what Jesus said to him? Don't rejoice because of what I've given you the power to do. Rejoice because your name is written in heaven. And you know what it's written in? Blood. Blood. I hope y'all have the merriest Christmas that you have ever had. And I hope you're free of all bitterness. Thank you.